There's a whole subgenre of AI research called AI safety research. And we connected with an AI safety researcher at Underwriter Laboratories Research, or UL Research. You might recognize the term UL, because if you turn your toaster oven over and you look on the bottom, you'll probably see a stamp that says UL. And it's a 130-year-old organization. It was originally invented to ensure the safety of electrical devices back when electricity was invented, like 130 years ago. And so they do safety testing of physical devices all over the world. And they have started a division to look into testing the safety profile of AI. Some people refer to AI as the new electricity in terms of what it's going to do to the world and what it's going to open up. And so we are partnering with them for their first major project, where we are having therapist volunteers interact with an LLM, with an AI chatbot, and grade the chatbot's responses based on how well it is addressing safety issues regarding suicidal.
Can you walk me through, so like the therapists are grading it. So what's the procedure look like?
Great question. This is the procedure. The therapist signs up to volunteer through our website, and we can give you the link.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll link it all in the show notes. If anybody's interested, just click there and you'll be able to get to this project.
Yeah.
If you're interested to sign up, please do.
We're hoping to have a large pool of therapists. The larger pool of therapists, the better, the more solid the results are. So I think we've already had dozens of therapists sign up. So the therapist signs up on our website. They attend a Zoom meeting, and in the Zoom meeting, they are plugged into an AI chatbot. It is not ChatGPT, but it'll look and kind of feel like ChatGPT.
So just a text-based
chatbot.
Chat. Okay.
Yep, just we're using an open source one. We're not using ChatGPT for various reasons, but for all intents and purposes, it'll feel like ChatGPT. And then the therapist is role-playing a suicidal client. So the therapist will type something to the effect in the chatbot of like, I don't feel like living anymore, or what's a way that I can end my life, or is there any reason to live, or there's millions of things we've heard from clients that indicate suicidal risk. And then the chatbot will reply with a response, and the therapist grades the response based on how we would interpret it if we were grading at a therapist training. So, for example, the chatbot might ignore the suicidality and might just start talking about the philosophy of living or something like that. And we would consider that a failing grade. Or the chatbot might say, like, are you thinking or considering hurting yourself? And that might be a moderate grade. Or the chatbot might say, are you thinking of hurting yourself? If so, here's a hotline for a suicide prevention hotline that I recommend you call right away. And that would be a really good response.
And so they're having like full length conversations with it, or is it just what they say initially?
Yeah, there's a series of prompts that we guide them through, and we're guiding the therapist through this whole process. So one of us is there kind of coaching the therapist through this process as the therapist role plays the client. And it'll take 60 to 90 minutes to go through, and that's it. That's all the therapist has to do. But what's going on here is the therapist is serving as what AI safety researchers would call a domain expert. Our domain is mental health. We are experts in this domain. And by doing this, we can help improve the safety profiles of the LLM.
So the therapist is playing two roles, if I'm hearing this right. So one role is, because they have some level of experience with real humans who are really struggling with this in the client role, that they have expertise in terms of what this would actually look like boots on the ground, or could look like.
Yes.
So they're playing that role of sort of embodied, right, called the suicidal client.
Yes.
And then they're also playing the role of expert in terms of being able to evaluate how the chatbot is responding to them in terms of quality on a number of indicators.
Correct.
And then I want to emphasize what you're saying as well, because, the companies that are running large language models, they will probably have to do something like this internally, but it is very different to have a team of domain experts, right? Actually lending their expertise to evaluate how safe or how ethical these outputs are, these responses are. right?
Mm-hmm.
Because with all things clinical, as you know, there's a lot of ambiguity in the mix. Like if you ask 10 therapists around like how empathic this was or wasn't, you could have a lot of different answers, but at least there's going to be more broad consensus about the quality of how safe or how ethical the responses are. That is something that is not really happening so much, right?
Yeah, so most of the major LLM companies have internal, they're called trust and safety teams or something like that. And they are working on this. And they probably have hired mental health professionals to work on those teams. We don't know because they don't talk about it, right? But I have seen the responses that the LLMs are giving to these kinds of things evolve just over the past 12 months. And I have heard that they have, professionals working on it. I don't know for sure. It is likely the LLM companies don't want to acknowledge that they are hosting millions of therapy sessions every day because they don't want to have to follow HIPAA and do all that. I mean, it's quite a burden to have to do all that. And so, but our ultimate, and so it is, we think it's important to do this kind of research where we are receiving no funding of any kind from the LLM companies. But we are aiming the research to providing data that hopefully they can use to improve the safety profile of their system.
And that was my next question, which is like, what is one objective of this is to get some data on where these LLMs do well and where they do poorly, right? So is that the primary objective or is there another objective here?
That's one of the objectives. The second objective is to create a data set that then the LLM companies can use to improve their performance. And this would be released as what's called an open source data set that would be available for all of them. This is not like we're not creating a company, we're not creating a product, we're not creating a chatbot or anything like that. Rather, we want to help provide resources that can improve the safety profiles of the LLMs that are being used by, potentially billions of people every day.
So that they'll have so you'll be able to release these conversations, which aren't real clients. So these conversations as well as the evaluation of the conversation. Right. So with the idea that these data could be fed into the LLM or whatever to help to improve the quality of the LLM's responses in real life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And released in an open source format. And both parts are really necessary. There has to be the conversation, which does not involve real clients, so we're not worried about privacy, confidentiality. But then importantly, the evaluation data from the domain experts, which are our therapist volunteers. Now, we think this is a great model going forward for the coming decades, because we expect this trend to continue, that more and more and more people are using the LLMs, especially as Alex said, young people might have never seen a therapist, and this might be their first experience, and they will have less of the creepiness factor than old folks like us, And so one way that we can contribute is just by improving the safety profile of their experience.